Hello, welcome to this channel. Today's deep dive unpacks Sophia Choi's escalating secrets, Sarah Horton Kiriaki's resolve, and the explosive fallout around baby Tesoro's paternity as Salem hurtles toward a dangerous breaking point. Core bombshell. Tate Black is confirmed not to be Tesoro's father, detonating Sophia's original story and forcing every character tied to the baby into crisis management mode. With Brady Black looped in on the DNA results and Kayla Brady's confirmation, the mystery shifts from whether Sophia lied to who the actual father is, and how far she'll go to keep that name buried. Sophia's secret spirals. Sophia is portrayed as scrambling, not simply misled. Every move now looks like a calculated attempt to control the narrative around Tesoro's conception and placement, even as the lies begin to unravel under pressure. Multiple spoilers for the week of October 13th suggest she snaps, telegraphing a shift from deception to potential criminality as confrontation closes in. Sarah confronts danger. Sarah Horton Kiriakis directly confronts Sophia, pressing for the true identity of Tesoro's father, while threading the needle of doctor-patient confidentiality that could cost her license if mishandled. Although bound by HIPAA, Sarah's track record and moral compass hint at creative workarounds if she believes a child's safety is at risk, a line she has been teased as willing to cross for the greater good. Kidnapping fears rise. Spoilers raise the alarming possibility that Sophia could incapacitate or even kidnap Sarah to stop the truth from getting out, escalating the storyline from scheming to a full-blown hostage crisis. That prospect aligns with teasers that her lies will collapse and require a daring rescue, with Rafe Hernandez flagged as a likely first responder if things go off the rails. Adoption chaos. Sophia's interference has already detonated Johnny DiMera and Chanel Dupree DiMera's adoption bid, beginning with a letter to social services and snowballing into a scandal fueled by a weaponized photo tied to Holly Jonas' phone. Leo Stark's investigation into Johnny's fitness as an adoptive dad further poisoned the well, making the couple's dream of adopting Tesoro a moving target shaped by gossip and opportunism. Holly and the setup. The Holly-Johnny dynamic has been manipulated through suggestive photos and whispers of impropriety, creating the perfect pretext for social workers to slam the brakes on Tesoro's placement with the DiMera-Dupree household. This targeted sabotage echoes Sophia's pattern, using perception as a weapon to maintain leverage over both Tate's emotions and the baby's future. Who is Tesoro's father? After the DNA twist, speculation centers on Aaron Green, the friend who shared a pivotal night with Sophia, fueling theories that he, not Tate, could be the biological father. Another branch of speculation confronts darker territory, memory gaps and potential trauma for Sophia that could explain her erratic behavior and profound aversion to bonding with the baby she safe-havened. Rafe connects dots. Rafe Hernandez is positioned as the institutional counterweight to Sophia's chaos, tying Holly's phone intel and adoption fallout to a broader picture that could clear Johnny and Chanel while tightening the net around Sophia's actions. With Rafe also designated as Tesoro's legal guardian in the safe haven chain, his findings carry unusual weight over what happens next with custody and any emergency paternity testing. Why the lie persisted. Sophia's fixation on Tate, combined with a single encounter conception and the safety of believing a devoted boyfriend was the dad, created a perfect storm for a long-lived lie that felt easier than confessing the truth. That same fixation helps explain why she sabotaged Johnny and Chanel's adoption path. Keeping Tesoro in limbo kept her secret insulated and Tate emotionally tethered. The medical X factor. There's growing chatter that a medical emergency could force the truth if treatment requires input from the biological father, collapsing Sophia's options and compelling a confession under crisis. If that emergency intersects with Rafe's guardianship and Sarah's ethics, Salem could see a swift, court-backed paternity cascade that strips Sophia of control. What Brady does next. Brady's next logical move is to seek a direct match between Tesoro and Sophia, then work outward to likely candidates, cutting through rumor with verified results to protect Tate from further harm. If a second verified DNA path confirms the mother-child link and names the father, Brady's leverage over both Sophia and any enablers increases dramatically. Danger signs with Sophia. Pattern analysis marks a progression: deceptive paternity claims, invasive photo tactics, letter writing to tank an adoption, and calculated leaks that weaponize timing and optics. When spoilers hint she will snap, the trajectory suggests physical risk to adversaries, particularly Sarah, if Sophia believes exposure will shatter her life beyond repair. Legal and ethical stakes. Even if Sarah skirts the edge, HIPAA stands firm unless immediate safety is implicated, making any disclosure a high-wire act that could end her career if not justified. Conversely, false statements to social services, fabricated evidence, and interference with adoption processes invite serious legal exposure for Sophia if investigators can trace origins and intent. The rescue vector. Multiple outlets frame Rafe as the one to step in when Sophia's web collapses, setting up a suspense beat where law enforcement becomes the mechanism for both rescue and revelation. If a hostage scenario materializes, expect a two-track climax: Sarah's extraction and an immediate pivot to airtight paternity confirmation to prevent any further manipulation. Likely endgame. The most plausible near-term beats: a failed attempt by Sophia to silence Sarah, an intervention led by Rafe, and a forced unveiling of the biological father that rewrites custody discussions overnight. In the aftermath, Johnny and Chanel's adoption prospects could revive if the scandal around Johnny is officially debunked and social services clears the interference from Sophia's dossier. Fallout for relationships. Tate faces a second heartbreak, first the loss of presumed fatherhood, then the realization that the romance was scaffolded by a lie, making reconciliation with Sophia unlikely in the short term. Johnny and Chanel must repair reputational damage and rebuild trust with gatekeepers, but a formal clearing of the record could put them back in contention for Tesoro or another placement. Watch for one more twist. Days rarely resolves a paternity arc without one extra feint, and the open questions about memory gaps, tampering, or a misdirected suspect list leave room for a late episode swerve before the true father is named on screen. Whether that twist is Aaron or a left-field candidate tied to Sophia's blackout theory, the resolution is poised to intersect with a medical or legal urgency that forces absolute clarity. Final takeaway. The secret is no longer whether Tate is Tesoro's dad, it's how quickly Sophia's house of cards collapses once Sarah's courage, Rafe's authority, and Brady's persistence converge on the truth. With Sophia on the brink and Salem's institutions tightening their grip, the next week promises a volatile mix of rescue, revelation, and reckoning that will reshape Tesoro's future for good. Part 2, Wednesday Recap. The Kiriakis men stand united, but at what cost? It was a stormy Wednesday in Salem, not because of the weather, but because the long-brewing corporate feud between the Kiriakis and DiMera families finally reached its boiling point. In an episode that balanced sharp business maneuvering with heavy doses of family emotion, Maggie, Philip, and Xander Kiriakis took a stand that could either unite their fractured family, or destroy everything they fought to rebuild. Maggie's faith in family. The episode opened with a quiet but heartfelt moment between Maggie Horton Kiriakis and her stepson, Philip. In the sitting room of the Kiriakis mansion, Maggie polished the family crest plaque that once belonged to Victor, a silent nod to the empire that had dominated Salem's business scene for decades. She reminded Philip that the Kiriakises had always been strongest when they worked together. A united family can defeat Tony DiMera, she said softly, her voice steady but filled with conviction. Stronger together, that's how Victor built everything we have. Philip, who has spent much of his adult life in his father's shadow, listened with that familiar blend of skepticism and longing. He's a man who's made his share of mistakes, from business missteps to romantic disasters, but for once, he seemed to want to believe his stepmother's words. When Maggie reached out to place her hand on his, he didn't pull away. Instead, he nodded, a small but meaningful gesture that showed he was ready to stand by her side. The meeting at the mansion. By the time the Kiriakises arrived at the DiMera mansion, the tension could be felt through the screen. Tony DiMera, ever the picture of composed arrogance, was already waiting for them in the grand study. The ornate fireplace cast long shadows across the room, highlighting the faces of three people who represented generations of rivalry. Maggie stood tall, flanked by Philip and Xander, two men with turbulent histories but a shared last name that now bound them more tightly than ever. She delivered the news without hesitation. DiMera Enterprises would now belong to Tony, while Titan Industries would remain in Kiriaki's hands. Tony's reaction was classic DiMera. Cool, controlled, but dripping with disdain. His dark eyes narrowed as he glared at Maggie, as though trying to read the real meaning behind her calm expression. "So that's it," he said coldly. "You're walking away and leaving me the scraps of what used to be a dynasty?" But Maggie wasn't rattled. She countered with measured grace, "We're not walking away, Tony. We're reclaiming what was ours from the beginning. The Kiriaki's legacy doesn't belong to outsiders. It belongs to this family." Philip added his own edge, folding his arms with that old familiar Kiriaki's swagger. "You wanted DiMera? Fine. Take it. But don't underestimate what we can do with Titan when we're united." Tony's counterattack. Tony, of course, couldn't resist having the last word. His lips curled into that thin, knowing smile that only a DiMera could pull off. "United? You mean the same Kiriaki's family that's been at war with itself for years?" he taunted. "Be careful, Maggie. Be careful, Philip. You might find that Titan isn't the prize you think it is. By the time I'm through, you'll be left with nothing but an empty shell." The comment landed like a dagger in the room. Everyone knew Tony's warning wasn't idle. Rumors had long circulated that Titan was facing deeper financial troubles than anyone in Salem realized. Some whispered that corporate espionage, possibly even from within the family itself, had already weakened the company's core operations. But Maggie didn't flinch. "We've been left with nothing before," she replied, her tone sharp but dignified. "And every time, we've rebuilt." Xander, who had been standing slightly behind them, the once brash enforcer now transformed into a reluctant executive, finally stepped forward. His voice, calm but resolute, broke the standoff. "We're done here, Tony. Enjoy DiMera. We'll take care of Titan." Tony's parting shot followed them out the door. "I'll just wait until Titan collapses, and buy it back for pennies." Back at Titan. Uneasy allies. The tension didn't fade once they returned to Titan headquarters. Philip and Xander's working relationship has always been complicated, built on grudging respect but marred by ego and old wounds. As the two men settled into Victor's old office, the air between them was thick with unspoken resentment. Xander, still bearing faint bruises from recent confrontations, both physical and emotional, tried to ease the tension with his usual optimism. "It's done," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Tony's out of our way. We'll rebuild Titan. Together." Philip, ever the realist, shot him a look. "You make it sound simple. Titan's bleeding money, Xander. Half our board wants to sell off divisions. And after what we did to secure that deal, we're not exactly saints in this town." But Xander only shrugged. "Maybe not. But we're family. And as long as we stand together, we'll survive. We always do." It was a strangely hopeful sentiment coming from a man who'd once been Salem's most ruthless opportunist. Maggie's influence, it seemed, had softened him, or perhaps the years of betrayal and loss had finally taught him the value of loyalty over revenge. A moment of gratitude, and guilt. As the night deepened, Xander surprised Philip with something rare, sincerity. "I never thanked you," he said quietly. "For protecting me. After everything. The beatings, the mess. You could have turned your back, but you didn't." Philip's expression softened for the briefest moment. "That's what family does," he replied. But behind those words lingered something darker, the unspoken truth that their bond was built not just on loyalty, but on secrets. Salem has seen its share of cover-ups, and this one felt no different. Phillips' defense of Xander wasn't just an act of brotherly compassion, it was a desperate attempt to keep Titan's scandals buried. And as they sat together in that office, surrounded by portraits of Victor and echoes of past betrayals, the question hung heavy in the air: was this truly a new beginning for the Kiriakis, or merely the latest chapter in a never-ending cycle of pride, power, and pain? What comes next? The Kiriakis family may have won the battle, for now. But Tony DiMera's warning still rings ominously in the background. Titan is far from stable, and unity built on fragile trust rarely lasts long in Salem. Still, for one brief, shining moment, Maggie's vision held true: 3 Kiriakis standing together, stronger than they've been in years. Whether that unity will endure when the next storm hits, only time will tell. For now, the war between Titan and DiMera has entered a new phase, one defined not by greed or vengeance, but by survival. And in Salem, survival has always been the ultimate victory.